Hey, it's me, Chris Nichols. Welcome back, my PetaPixel viewers. Why the bland intro? Well, the powers that be have told me that the PetaPixel P-word pun party has been paralyzed permanently for the past, present, and future with a PH. So, you know, if you want to comment on that, leave those in the comments below. But hey, I have a way to cheer you up. We have a brand new AstrHori probe lens to review. Let's get to it. So here we go. Here it is, the AstrHori, I assume that's how you say it, 18mm f8 probe lens. Now, this has a design very similar to another lens we have reviewed, the Laowa probe, and indeed they do a very similar function. Before we get down to the differences, I do want to say that we have learned our lesson. These are really primarily video-based lenses, so we're giving you guys a lot of cool video clips to look at. We're not really going to be taking pictures on these, but there are some very important differences between these two. The first being that the AstrHori is made for APS-C sensors, whereas the Laowa is full frame coverage. Now, the real beauty of these lenses when you're using them for video is getting right into your subjects, you know, doing dynamic shots where you're pushing into them or pushing past them, you know, very close up, very precise kind of stuff. And in that regard, you absolutely want to have yourself a motion control slider, something that's motorized where you can, you know, speed up, slow down, set your ramping. We've done that in the past and that's absolutely effective. However, I do want to point out that for these particular samples, we did not have access to a motion control slider. So we had to use a good old fashioned hand-powered slider. But yes, definitely get yourself a motorized slider if you really want to get the most out of these lenses. So why would I want to get the AstrHori lens when, first off, it's only covering APS-C size sensors, you know, and it's actually physically larger than the Laowa lens, which is a full frame lens right beside it? Well, there are some advantages here. I mean, first off, let's consider that a lot of cameras on the market are APS-C size sensors only. I mean, we're using a Canon EOS R7 as well today. But also, a lot of cameras that are video cameras that are full frames do shoot in a super 35mm format, which is essentially an APS-C crop mode. Sometimes they even do better there, especially if they have rolling shutter issues with their full frame sensors. So, you know, that could be a reason why you might want to get the AstrHori. Now you might be saying, okay, well, but APS-C sensors, they're not gonna be as good in low light, I'm gonna get more noise to start with than a full frame sensor. And yes, in most cases you're right, although it really does depend on the camera. But also let's consider that the AstrHori lens is a brighter f8 aperture compared to the Laowa's f14 aperture on full frame. So even when you account for the sensor size difference, you're still gonna get a little bit more light here with this lens. So actually, that's not really gonna be an issue. The main thing though really is, from a design standpoint, what can they do? And the AstrHori really does add some very unique features. First off, the front is very similar in the probe. I mean, they both have little ports here. You can plug in USB to use the incorporated LED lights at the front. Both are absolutely waterproof up to about that USB port. Now, this is the original Laowa probe lens. It doesn't have a removable lens here, but the Peri probe that we've looked at does have the option to add on an additional 90-degree head. That is, of course, a more expensive unit. Here, the AstrHori also has that option. We've just got a collar we can rotate, and then we can take off this lens assembly. And so that opens up potential to add further options if you want to have different lens options in the future. It just adds to that flexibility. Now, another thing that's nice here is when we look at the aperture rings, I love the fact that we actually have gears on here. We have toothed aperture ring and a toothed manual focus ring. So then you can use motorized aperture controls. You can also use motorized follow focus, and that's really a feature to have as well. So next I want to talk about full frame, because the Laowa is a 24mm lens, nice and wide on full frame, you know, especially when you're pushing through, you want that perspective. The AstrHori, we were excited because it's 18mm, but of course, let's remember on an APS-C body, that's going to change a bit. So roughly 27mm on most APS-C bodies. Here we have it for Canon RF, slightly tighter crop factor, so it's more like 29. So we're actually losing out a little bit as far as wide angle coverage goes. But let's consider that if we were to put this Laowa lens onto an APS-C body, it's going to crop as well, actually closer to 36. So when you're shooting in an APS-C Super 35 kind of option, the AstrHori is actually going to give you a wider focal length. Or so we thought. We did some testing, we found something very interesting. So yes, absolutely at distance, shooting both lenses on a crop body, the AstrHori is a little bit wider, as you can see here on the chart, but you're never going to shoot longer distances. These lenses are really made for close-up shooting, going through objects, probing through things. And so in that regard, when you go close-up, look what happens. The Laowa actually gives you a slightly wider field of view than the AstrHori, even considering the fact that we're using a Canon body, which has has a 1.6 times crop factor. However, there are some advantages for the AstrHori. Although both lenses say they do 2:1 macro, the AstrHori 18mm actually gets you more magnification at your minimum focusing distance. So it could be just that the AstrHori is getting you closer magnification, maybe there's more lens breathing, whatever it is, it's not quite giving you the same wide field of view as the Laowa, but it's very close. Okay, so let's talk about sharpness next on the AstrHori. Now, we did do our standard lens test charts, but the fact of the matter is, although the lens did fine there, that's not where you're going to use this lens. We really wanted to test it up close. So let's take a look at our close-up shot here. First off, you can see the AstrHori shooting in the center at f8 has a lot of detail. When we stop it down to f14, we don't really get much sharper. What we do notice is we get more contrast. So there's some benefit to stopping down. And honestly, shooting in the center or the corner and refocusing didn't really make any difference. It's a very flat shooting lens. So we're good there. Now, when we previously reviewed the Laowa lens, we found it to be a very decent lens, very flat shooting lens as well, good throughout the range. But when we compare the two side by side, again, with the Laowa on an APS-C crop body, what we're really seeing is that I'd say the detail and contrast is better on the AstrHori. It just seems to have a little bit more punch and a little bit more detail. The AstrHori is a very sharp lens, and I think it would easily hold up even up to 6K resolution video. If we're going to shoot Super 35 format or use an APS-C camera, it should be a no-brainer, right? I mean, the AstrHori is sharper, it's got more detail, it's way more affordable. I like the design better, it's more flexible as well, and you're actually getting a little bit more light here overall. That being said, the only consideration would then be, well, what about that wide angle look? Because, you know, with that lens breathing, with the fact that this is actually a little bit tighter, not as wide as the Laowa, up close on an APS-C crop, if you want the absolute most dynamic wide angle look, you might still look at the Laowa probe. If you're okay with the minor difference though, you're still going to get a really cool effect here with the AstrHori. I do think it makes a lot more sense from a price standpoint and from its capabilities and optical performance. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that gentle probe into both of these lenses, and you can find out which one's more manageable for you. And if you'd like to probe Jordan and I for more info, please do. Leave that stuff in the comments below. We'll absolutely get...
You're only speaking for yourself.
We'll absolutely get to it. Otherwise, of course, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the notification bell, add a like, we'd appreciate that. And listen to our podcast. You can watch it right here on the same YouTube channel, or you can listen to it on all of your favorite podcasting apps. Thanks for joining us as always, and we'll see you soon with more episodes with PetaPixel.